this has to do with a daughter's vision, a father's support, and an eco-friendly business starting from scratch, almost from scratch, let's say. So Ayşegül is her name. She's the heroine of the story. She's an entrepreneur, and she's an earthquake survivor from Hatay, Turkey. She was born in 1992 at the Syrian border, and she says, when I was a kid, I remember hearing the wedding ceremonies from the Syrian side, and we used to go visit relatives on the border at holiday times. So it's so close to the Syrian border, and that means you're really far away from big cities, opportunities. You don't have many as far as academic opportunities go. She says we were 5 sisters, and this is Hatay, by the way. It's a really great place and right by the sea. And growing up, they used to, her father and mother, they were both working. And what they used to do is, since they're just living by the forest, they're picking leaves, forest products, and simply selling them. And her dad wouldn't let her study until work was done. So she was a brilliant student, but she had to allocate time for her studies only after collecting leaves was done, for instance. So they used to collect either the fruit of laurel tree or the leaves. And she remembers we had a 2-bedroom apartment for 5 siblings, and she never had a study desk of her own. And also, because they were so far away from the city, they did not have any opportunity to get private tutoring, which means that you're taking a national exam throughout the country at the university college stage. And that means you're pretty disadvantaged because without any private tutoring, it's difficult to score high at that exam. So anyway, she says her dad was her inspiration for mostly because her dad was an entrepreneur as well. He had started his own laurel leaf company. So they were selling laurel leaves, and her sister and her mother, her sisters and her mother were his first staff, basically, because they were simply, they were the laborers. They were, picking the leaves and simply selling the leaves like that. And then one day her dad decided that he could, start wholesaling, which meant like they bring the leaves together, dry them up, and then sell them in bulk amounts, which meant they had to buy some manufacturing equipment to dry the whole thing. And that's how he started entrepreneurship. So they were working pretty hard as a family. But what happened was, while they were using the fruit to make soap, and while they were using the leaves, the branches that she was showing right here in the middle, the branches were left over as waste. And as they kept growing the business, the branches started to be a problem. So Ayşegül had started looking for what she can do with this waste that they didn't know what to do with because they simply couldn't, get rid of it. And she started researching the internet, and she found hazelnuts in the Black Sea region. Hazelnut shells were turned into pellet, which is a biofuel. So they were compressed, they were turned into powder and then compressed and burned as biofuel. So she thought, before that, she had this as an idea, but right then they had a big fire, and many of the engines at her father's plant caught fire. And 4 days after the fire was extinguished, they found little pieces of still burning laurel branches under the equipment. So she thought this laurel tree has this opportunity to burn at high calories. So she said, why don't we turn this into a biofuel? And she basically contacted a company in Ankara, which is the capital city, to see if laurel leaves or laurel branches would be good enough to be turned into biofuel and to be an alternative material to burn, just like coal, right? And it turns out that this new biofuel called pellet, which was first invented by the Italians, was a good product. So they basically started in 2018 this company called Defne Pellet, and it started as 100 square meter place. And in 2021, it grew to 1,500 square meters. That's a lot. It's like 15 times growth in 3 years. So she basically turned a waste product into a new source of income. And also, this was the company when she started Defne Pellet Company. But also she became a mother at the same time. So she was divided between two things, being a mother and being an entrepreneur in her own company, which was pretty demanding in terms of time. So at first, when she came up with this product, people didn't know what she was doing. So she basically made a list of all the potential clients who had to burn coal for their own manufacturing of different sorts. And she had to go knock on their door and ask if they would be willing to give a try for her product. And some people basically doubted this young lady. How can she be owning this place? But she persisted. And the people who didn't turn her down, when they used the product, they were happy and they started asking for more, and they started word of mouth, and that's how the company grew and how demand picked up. So eventually she started giving pellets, this biofuel, to paper mills, hotels, dairy product producers, poultry farms, or direct consumers. So this pellet stuff, what she has over here, has pretty high calorie burning, and it burns in ovens, not man-fed, but it burns like coal. It burns for long hours. That's why it's good in the sense that with regular coal, you only have 70% productivity. That means 30% is like stone. It doesn't burn. But with pellet fuel, 99% gives warmth. It burns. So, and plus, coal has this carbon dioxide emission, and this one doesn't. So it's green, pretty clean kind of stuff. So when her success criteria was to be able to sell to Italy, because this product was first initiated in Italy. And she was able to sell to Italy eventually. In the meanwhile, she sold to Bulgaria, Finland, Croatia, Lebanon, Germany. So basically by the way, she doesn't speak English. I met her in person and she doesn't speak English, but she's willing to learn the language. But despite all that, she was able to export to all these countries. And one day, she saw a business magazine. And in that magazine, she saw this ad for women entrepreneurship contest for the nation, for Turkey. And she decided to apply. She was imagining, what would happen if I could be the entrepreneur of the year, the women entrepreneur. And in 2 years' time, in 2021, she became the woman entrepreneur of Turkey. And after that, she started getting all these prizes. And with all the recognition that she got, she started advising other people, because people started calling her up from all over the country, asking her if she would advise them on setting up plants for pellet production, for biofuel pellet production. And she said, sure. So she started, advising. She started consulting business on how to start the plant, because it's not easy to start a manufacturing plant from scratch. And many women, both in academia, chose her as their topic of study as an entrepreneur, as a woman who started her own business. And she basically, when she had first started, it was 2 tons a day, her production capacity. But eventually she reached 20 tons a day of production. And she says that's not even enough to get close to meet the demand, even in my hometown, let alone countrywide, Turkey-wide, or European-wide, or global. There is strong demand because Europe has decided to cut on coal burning and switch to clean items, and biofuel being number one in that. And hotels, for instance, in the mid-Anatolia region in Turkey, has to burn clean biofuel stuff, not coal. So she says this product was highly promising as far as making money and getting known in the market is concerned. So she basically was able to make her dream of selling to Italy. And on February 6th, while her dreams had come true, while she was running her wonderful business that she adored, while she was raising her son, an earthquake hit. She was in the living room, and I think she was in the bedroom. And by the way, I met with this lady. I met with her and I asked her, how was the earthquake? How did you survive? What was it like? Because I wasn't there. But she says, it was devastating. It's beyond anything you can dream, she says, because the whole building was shaking and she was trying to get out, open the door to get out of the room, to go to another room and get out of the building, but the doors were locked. She simply couldn't make them open. And she figured she was able to pass to the kitchen. And she called her dad to say, she was able to go to the living room through the kitchen. And she said, she was thinking she was going to die because the building was about to collapse on her. That's what she thought. And she wanted to leave the message that don't look for my corpse in the bedroom. My corpse will be in the living room. That was the message she was trying to pass to her dad. But then in the instance of a second, she was able to find her car keys and she gave another try to open the door. The door opened. She got the keys. She got her bag. She moved out, got in her car, and drove away to see her son because her son was with his dad a couple of blocks away. So she says, I don't remember anything until I was able to see my son, because my only thought was, am I going to be able to see my son? How's my son? Is he alive? Because she didn't know whether she was going to find her son dead or alive, because it was devastating. She says, all the shrieks, all the glass being broken, everything rattling. It was just like unreal, she says. Then, by the way, the roads are broken. They split up into half. So she, to a certain place, she was able to drive. After a while, she couldn't drive. So she had to get out of the car and basically run to her son. Thank God she was able to find her son, and she hugged her son, and that was the moment for her that earthquake was over. I mean, she says, I didn't care what happened. What mattered was my son was safe, and I was able to find him. Yet, it, it was raining. It was February, which is cold in Turkey, and they couldn't go back to their houses because everything was shattered. And she just didn't know what to do. 2 days later, they were in the car in the 2 days right after the earthquake. They were in the car, and she received a phone call from Izmir, from a person she had never met. And this person was saying, please come to Izmir. You have to come to Izmir. And she says, I didn't know this person. I had no idea why she was calling me, she said, but this person said, you have to come to Izmir. We have a place for you to stay. Please bring your family and come to Izmir. And Ayşegül is like a 30-year-old lady. She says, I had not driven long distance before that day. I mean, the longest distance was like a 3-hour drive. But 2 days after the earthquake, I got my mom, my sisters, and my son, and I basically drove for 12 hours from Hatay to Izmir, single-handedly. And when they got there, they found this incredible place. Oh, by the way, I met her in Hatay, and this is Ayşegül, and that's me. And I interviewed her because the story was so compelling to me. Like, how can you have your dream come true and then lose it at an earthquake? And then how do you survive an earthquake? How do you survive once your life is shattered? So those were my burning questions, and I was able to ask all those questions. So I wanted to prove you that this is not made up, and it's not like out of the internet curated kind of thing. Anyway, so she said this family, which is in the left, this father and the lady, they had a daughter, and the daughter was following her Woman of the Year story, entrepreneurship story over social media. And their daughter had contacted her, and she begged her to come over. And when they did, Ayşegül was surprised because like they met her as if she was a queen. She and her son, they had their own room, and they gave brand new items like pajamas with tags on them, brand new items, things I couldn't have bought on my own, she said. Really good stuff, all waiting to be worn by me, with a private room and my own desk to work. And here on the right is her son. They actually bought Play-Doh and coloring things so that, you know, to keep him busy. And after a while, they actually registered him to a school so that he wouldn't be absent from school. His schooling would progress. And she simply couldn't believe this. This family basically adopted her, her mom, her sisters, and her son for like 5 months, 6 months. And when eventually she decided to get back to Hatay, this man found a room for her, and he rented that place. He paid a whole year's rent so that Ayşegül was able to go back to Hatay and live there and restart whatever she was supposed to restart. But the story is not that nice, because when she got back, her father did not leave the city after the earthquake, but all their workers, all their employees had migrated, and they didn't have any employees. And so they had to stop production. The state had deferred payments for utility for 4 months, but after 4 months, the state started charging for the power that the plant was using. And she basically was faced with 400,000 liras, which is not easy to pay because she had no source of income. And she said, thank God we had some inventory to sell. So I was selling my inventory in order to cover my utility bills. And however, she says, I had to start a new line of business, which had a higher profit margin because with the influx of the Syrians, it was very easy for Syrians to pick forest leaves, laurel leaves from the forest and sell them to other pellet production plants. So the profit margin in this business had started falling. So I had to find something else. And eventually, while she was in Izmir, a person from UK contacts her and asks her if she would be interested in coming up with a cosmetic product line. And so she basically came up with this brand, Defne'den, and she is now producing laurel soap, facial creams, peeling products. And one thing she's doing is she has switched her production from Hatay to Ankara with the cosmetic line, because Ankara is less prone to earthquakes. Whereas Hatay, even yesterday, we had another earthquake here. It keeps just shaking. So one thing she made sure is at least she's not going to be hit 100% with all of her production. So she started diversifying the risk of losing her income when something happens in Hatay, her hometown. At least she will be able to carry on with sales from Ankara, who are producing her cosmetic line of business. Excuse me. So, yeah, I think, yeah, those are my references. I would like to open up the floor for